pose it as a specific reaction to the fact that Critique seems to have said in comments he doesn't have time for me now. He's moving on to better things. Granted, he said that to someone else, not directly to me. But whatever, I think it's a good time for that because I think we've reached the end of what we can exhaust. Now, generally, I could go on and on with the person because until you tell me, hey, just read this book, that's what tells you my ideas. And even then, because I don't believe them, you still can find out how well they know the book. There's something to find out about their unique version of the points of view. Basically, the more predictable you are, then in general, the less chance, that it'll be productive from my point of view to have a conversation. If you have some uniqueness, this position isn't the same one that so many people mix with another position. You have a unique take. Then my curiosity remains intact for a long time. Except for this very common thing, which it seems so many people, people I agree with as well, seem to have this idea. They really think they're saying you don't listen and you don't understand and you're deluded. They think the only reason that you could possibly have a difference with them, whatever their position is, this side or the other side, you must be lying, right? Or deluded, right? Or you're a hypocrite. Or, they just don't see it possible that we should work to get the same facts on the table. That's an important part of the methodology of conversation. Yes, do that, right? And then we're not deluded. We're still not going to agree. Democracy, if you think about it, a kingship, and you have a new little baby lord, and he loves polo, and then you teach your boy to do polo. You have something to be, uniform, something to conform to, which is important to people that believe the health of a society is by its ability to conform because, you need to take your leader. There has to be a conductor. Democracy is not about that. Democracy is not about we're all going to agree. It's an acknowledgement that we're not all going to agree. So how can we work together on those things we do agree on? How can we work together on those things we have to figure out a way to agree on? When we have a compromise, but I like my shade of the agreement of a compromise and you like yours, we vote. And the point is the power of the people, and the people have the power to be an individual, and thus we don't expect to all be exactly on the same page on things. And this is because there's an acknowledgement that, yes, some of our disagreements are miscommunication. They can be hypocrisy. People can be lying. People can be seriously deluded and invested in their delusionment. That's all happens, and it's an important problem because we're dealing with a lot of it. However, once that's sorted out, people are still going to disagree on things. And I've tried to make that clear. Right now, I think some of this is clear. I can only see it like as a cognitive problem. The idea, for example, that Quintica seems to think is just too much is that I believe white males are oppressed in the world society. And I'm a feminist as well. And that's a contradiction and a hypocrisy. And it's not just that I'm mistaking it, but I must be lying. I'm a hypocrite. I believe one thing and another. He can't believe that I believe what I tell him because it doesn't make sense. If I was being honest, I would agree with him. So how could he listen to me honestly describe why I think differently? And I understand why he might think I have a mistaken worldview, but it seems pretty straightforward to me that if you are a person that looks at the world and go, geez, look at all the injustice. You had slavery and misogyny and war. You had people trying to poison, genocide. You got all of this stuff. And I'm like, there's a whole messed up system behind why people are thinking that way. It's counterproductive. It's crazy. And so I could say, well, there's a lot of injustice. And because of, for example, economic injustice, we're talking about way over 50% of the people subject to these systems that I find, stupid and counterproductive and unjust. And so that means that includes white men. That's how that logic falls out. It includes white women. It includes African American women. And it's just like I could say that Caucasian women have systematic bias And I can say that African American women have a systematic bias, and I can say there's a systematic bias against African Americans general, and those things don't all those don't all conflict. But how could the white women, if the white women are oppressed, how could they, like there's only one person that can be oppressed? No, we could all 100% be oppressed. We could be like, you can't really think of it as a material oppression, oppressing the rich because they kind of have the means to sort of, they should be able to cope. But it sure seems emotionally sometimes, the bad attitude people have about the rich bothers them. So we have bigoted ideas about the rich that I don't necessarily think are fair. It's just that, maybe they could look out for themselves, but really, I don't think that. I don't like demonizing the rich. There's rich people are great people too, on an individual basis and not on an individual basis. We could talk about the ratios if you want, and fall on different sides, but the general principle is that I believe is individuals are responsible and get rewarded and everything else for themselves. Now, uh, if he was confused about the definition, we've been discussing this. I understand his definition of feminism as this pro advocacy, women are absolutely disadvantaged, da da da, nobody else can be disadvantaged. I mean, it's not entirely coherent, but I understand the gist of where he's coming from. He doesn't seem to get the gist of when I'm talking about feminism, if there's a bias, and the bias is about systematic gender bias against women, then working to rectify that is called, has the name feminism or feminist action. And if it's to rectify a systematic bias that's considered unjust for workers, that would be a labor or worker rights activism. And if it's a war that can be avoided, and that's peace activism. And none of those mean you aren't concerned about other things. As a matter of fact, what I find is among activists that are drawn in through feminism, through labor activism, through any one particular route, when they all meet together and help each other on, for example, anti-war activism, which basically brings the biggest coalition of progressives together that can be made, as far as I know, it turns out they do care. That feminists, liberal feminists, will tend to care about labor issues. In the nitty gritty, there's still conflict and fraction. You have more than one faction. Sometimes the differences are different, but there's a general sentiment that, yeah, I'm a feminist, I'm liberal, we need justice for women. Oh, yeah, that's true. What you're saying is true. It's also, we need justice civil rights wise. We need justice these various other ways. And again, if you disagree with me, fine. But if you don't understand that, given that view of mine, and my view of world history, obviously I'm never going to. I mean, I'm interested in hearing that you think the fact that evolution made rape fantasy natural according to you and normal and ordinary, to you, that's an argument for it. To me, I'm like, same deal with malaria. I don't have to. So if you don't understand that difference of opinion, I understand. I'm not saying that somebody with your sensibilities that likes what you like would ever agree with me, right? I'm curious in understanding why we disagree, and sometimes when you do that, you find out, oh, there isn't a fundamental disagreement. You and me, we do have a fundamental disagreement, many. I don't think that the fact that something evolved to a certain point is a justification that has to be let to stay that way. I think that's, in fact, ludicrously, insanely stupid. I mean, the malaria example should do it for you, but I could come up with millions more. And again, if you disagree with me, fine. Maybe you think we need to stick with tradition or accept what the way of nature as you see it, or any of those gods and faiths. Fine. Those come from preferences. You prefer a different kind of environment. It's like with immigration. I point out that immigrants, even illegal immigrants, have, the statistics say, less crime than the per capita population we already have in America. If that's not true, I'm not going to actually stop being for open borders, it could historically sway. That statistic could be wrong. It's not fundamental to why I'm for open borders. I mentioned it's more because I like heterogeneous societies. I look at American history and see that this has been a crucial point of what has been special about America. I'm all into doing the things that have been positive about America that made it perform in special ways over history. You know, I'm not just saying we are better, so therefore no, but I think we can do the things that worked for us and reach our highest potential. People that are frightened because they personally are frightened say, they like a regular order. I like different things at different times. They want everything ordered. They'd like it if everybody around them were ordered and everybody looks the same, wore the same kinds of clothes, the haircuts were the same. That makes them more comfortable. Emotionally, they're going to want the rules and stuff that they think will help that. Now, they might be misguided. They might want a rule that'll actually create more chaos. Yeah, then we can have a disagreement of the facts. What I find is even when people do agree with your facts, you demonstrate to them, oh, no, it works the other way, or they accept that immigrants actually are not a higher percentage criminals. That over the average, you're going to reduce the number of criminals because immigrants don't come specifically to be criminals. Generally, criminals taking the easy way and being the criminal locally, how they know is what they go for. People that are willing to move across the world or even be moved across the world generally are willing to put in some effort into what they're trying to accomplish. And if somebody agreed with that, they might change that opinion, but 9 times out of 10, they'd still be against immigration for all the other reasons, because it comes down to their personal feelings of what that situation means for them. And even if we all, as we should, got our facts straight and got on the same page about the facts, in a democracy, we still expect a whole spectrum of different ideas, and that the people that like it quiet are over here, and the people that like it noisy are over here, and the people that like it sometimes quiet and sometimes noisy are over here, and all of these different factions have to figure out a way to come together and not fuck up the roads. Oh, hey, Quintika's in the comments. Okay, well, maybe we'll have a little final conversation. You lost, we will not compromise. Okay, I don't know what you mean. I don't understand how you think I lost. See, that to me, that says that you're deluded. I understand you could think that I've lost, but then you add, you won't compromise. So you think I'm actually not here and you don't have to take the presence of myself and the majority of voters that voted for Hillary, for example, you could ignore them. Yeah, you could ignore them before and were more or less. So I'm offering compromise. I'm not asking for it. The trend is clear. We're going to crush you. Sexism is on the demise. Racism is on the run. It's halfway in the closet half the time. I'm not worried about the trend. All right. I like discussing things and finding out what's going on. I'm not worried that I need you to compromise with me to win in the end. And it remains to be seen how much I lose because of Trump, because who knows? If he turns out to be the greatest president ever and my vote was the wrong one, I win because my country gets made great again. Right? And that's what I hope happens now. But even besides that, it's in comparison with other Republicans that also might or could have beaten Hillary, and they are just as bad, if not worse. So I think, I heard about infrastructure. We weren't going to hear that from, Rubio not that he'll do it, but, at least that's what he's talking about. We will keep the pressure on. We have our own agenda. The U.S. is just a start. Right. Yeah. All you need to do is keep winning the presidency without getting the popular vote. Oh, and make a huge, huge firestorm of activity to go back in time. I'm on the wrong side of history, but you will learn. No, I think wanting women in, Saudi Arabia is going to turn out to be the right side of history. I had my chance. You don't get it. Quintica, my chance is called my life. Right? I'm going to still have these positions. And however the culture goes, I wasn't trying to misrepresent my position other than it is so that people would like me or I could pander to them. I'm not a candidate. I'm just saying how I think about things and what I want. And I could be in the extreme minority and I'm perfectly happy there. There's plenty of correct positions that are in the extreme minority. And so far in my life, they keep being adopted by more and more people. When I was a kid and I knew about what happened to the American Indians, if you said that, you were treated like a conspiracy theorist, some bad mouth and America hater, and that was all lies. The movies were true. That's not the case anymore, is it? No, it's changed around to I have to explain to people, well, they weren't just total, peaceful angel pie unicorns. So I've actually, the society's passing me by in its knowledge of this stuff to the point where I grew up knowing about real conspiracies that actually happened, the Tet Offensive or whatever, that were known, that have been brought out in the open, and now people believe any kind of shit because it's assumed so much that that's how things work that they'll make any shit up. Well, what's the steady state of that is finding out what the real corruptions are. You've assumed control. See, in your dreams, this is still a country full of the same people, Quitika. You haven't assumed control. But I know that Bannon will go ahead and pretend control was assumed and force his way through like a bull and it'll give him all the power. But actually, this is still America with hundreds of millions of people in it, and we don't go quietly. We're used to electing presidents that most, or I mean, half, well, most as well, but almost half of us didn't vote for. We're used to that. That's a part of the system. It's not like, oh, a new page in history. It's Trump's way of thinking from now till forever. There'll never be another liberal. And what you don't seem to get, and especially what you're missing, is the Clintons were about the third way. The third way was we'll kick out the McGoverns. We won't listen to them anymore. We won't even have a Carter anymore. We will pony up with big money and big business, create this third way Democrat, this conservative Democrat, new style conservative Democrat that is financially and the traditions of that kind of area, economically, actually conservative, not very liberal. And in American politics would be considered centrist historically, right? And we won't listen to the liberals because they're putting up people like McGovern. We're never going to have the president again. Maybe it had to happen. I don't know. But now that's what's really lost. That's what's really lost. See, on our side, you could think we're deluded wrong, but we're not going away. And people are thinking, yeah, probably Bernie did have a better chance against Trump because people hate Hillary. So the Clintons are done, and it's not over. Uh, Shane, I call it a democracy because it has the elements of democracy. I certainly believe that the voice of the people could be more powerful, but this is still a democracy. There's an infinite way of forming things with the goals of democracy and putting vote in, and we have one of them. The fact that we are contractually bound to something called the Constitution, well, that's because your ancestors came over here and signed into an agreement that already had the Constitution. And that's how it works, and that's how it says it works in the Constitution. And so it's all written down. And for thousands of years, people were born into systems that nobody ever wrote down anything. They're just born. There was a king. You got killed if you fucked around too much in a way that pissed off the king. You got rewarded if you fucked around in ways that he liked. Okay, so we got a written deal. That's an improvement. You want a perfect written deal that lets you do whatever, and we don't need law because people could figure out what they want to do. Well, we haven't been in that world yet. Okay, I don't want you running around this country with no contractual bounds to obey what we consider the public peace. The basis for the contract is simple, Shane. I'm not saying it's legitimate, quite the opposite. A bunch of people privately formed a militia. They took the land from the other occupying force, the British. Then they defended the land from Native Americans, from the French, the Spanish, and they took a bunch more of it from those same groups of people. That group of people also wrote a constitution. And anybody that wanted to come and take part in this land co-op of land stolen by the old rules, by the American military, taken fair and square by the old rules, back when slavery was part of the rules too. But be that as it may, that is how it happened. And everybody over in America now has come after that agreement, right? Because I have ancestors that came across in the Mayflower. And sometimes I'll say, oh, I came across in the Mayflower. But in reality, most of my ancestry is all the immigrants subsequent to that. And that's true of everybody. Daughter American Revolution families, whatever, they're not a majority or anywhere near, people that were here before. We're immigrants, right? So we all came here after that written agreement, the first such written agreement that you could agree to, and people did agree to it. And now you inherited that. You inherited membership in that organization. And if you don't like it, you can leave the organization. But if you want to get the inheritance from your parents of citizenship, stock ownership in this private organization that the militia turned military created, then you're lucky to have an agreement, because the history of the world is no such agreement. You're just forced to. You're born here and we run the rules. In our country, it might feel like that, but in reality, there's a written agreement and they're accountable to it. Okay, first of all, okay, so Shane says, so the rules say you can't kill people, steal their land, and tax the hell out of their ancestors, but the very rule is grounded in a history based on killing people, stealing land, and taxing. Yeah, and hopefully you didn't just find out just right now that all nations are based on a history of killing people, stealing land, and taxing. However, so the rules say you can't kill people. No, the Constitution does not say you can't kill people, and in fact, it talks about uh, armed forces that their intent is to kill people. It does not say you can't steal people's land. It says nothing about that whatsoever. As far as the Constitution is concerned, the United States is the territory of the U.S. government. When they say, here, you can own this land, that means as a citizen, it's a lease. That's why you have to pay it every year. And the Constitution says that. So the Constitution does not say you can't tax the hell out of ancestors or their children, or according to the Constitution, which people should probably read more, you have to pay your taxes. And guess who decides what the taxes are going to be? Congress, not you. It's in the rule book. Okay, and you agreed to it. If they were bad rules, well, you don't get to change the rule book because they were bad rules. You can withdraw from the agreement, would be reasonable. All right, cheers. Thanks for playing, Shane.